Welcome to the web news. So, this is our kind of weekly short show where we talk about something relevant that we want to talk about in the tech space. Doesn't have to be exactly programming related. I think this is going to be the first time in a while where we are actually going to talk about news on the web news. So, what we're going to do today is literally there's an article that came up kind of interesting to me, kind of really relevant to what we've been talking about recently. We're going to do the TechCrunch version of this article, and I think we're just going to go ahead, skim it over together. I don't know if we're going to read the whole thing, but skim it over, give our honest kind of take on where we stand on this pretty big topic right now. And the topic being Coinbase CEO explains why he fired engineers who didn't try AI immediately, right? So the idea is that if you don't if you're not into AI at this point in 2025, uh, you might be in trouble. At least in Coinbase, that's probably just a one-off thing, but maybe other companies will follow suit. So I think we can just dive right into the article. Okay, so let's just try to read it kind of together a little bit and just jump in, Matt, when you think you have any kind of thoughts you want to share.
Should we nail that time or the headline there just to kind of give people like the
Absolutely. Yeah, I
mood, get
can
people in the
I can
mood
read
of
it
what we're
again.
about
So
to
Coinbase
dive
CEO
into?
explains why he fired engineers who didn't try AI immediately. That's the article. It's a TechCrunch article. We'll have it linked. You can see it on the screen if you're watching this on video. And if you're listening to this, we will have it linked in the show notes. So it starts off, it's hard to find programmers these days who aren't using AI coding assistants in some capacity, especially to write the repetitive, mundane bits. But those who refused to try the tools when Coinbase bought enterprise licenses for GitHub Copilot and Cursor got promptly fired, CEO Brian Armstrong said this week on John Collision's podcast, Cheeky Pint. So they just got promptly fired. Uh, that's just like, so essentially what happened was, according to this little snippet right at the start of the article, the Coinbase team, the Coinbase engineering team, bought licenses for all of their developers for GitHub Copilot and Cursor. So both tools I actually use quite a bit. And based on the usage of those tools, they actually made firing decisions. That's kind of crazy.
This sounds like one of those moves where it's like a broad filter where you're like, hey, I want to see who's in and out on AI. Like as a decision, I want to know who's in and who's out on AI. And if you're out, you're out. Like you're out of my company. It's like that one of those like screening things, and it's like, how do we do that? And this kind of sounds like this is how they're going to do it. They're looking at the usage statistics of these tools that they purchased the licenses for, and then they're just sort of like, okay, that's how I'm filtering out. Because it sounds like if you were anti AI in the interview of any recent job interviews there, you wouldn't be accepted anyway. So this is like a re-interview without being
That's absolutely
re-interviewed, if that
right.
makes
So
sense.
reading kind of further into it, I think he explains it a little bit more in depth. It wasn't as like abrupt as the initial little snippet there. Essentially what he says was Armstrong was shocked at the thought, kind of, he said, I went rogue, he said, and posted a mandate in the company's main engineering Slack. So this is how it started. I said, AI is important. We need you all to learn it and at least onboard. You don't have to use it every day yet until we do some training, but at least onboard by the end of the week. And if not, I'm hosting a meeting on Saturday with everybody who hasn't done it. And I'd like to meet you personally and understand why, right? Like that was the initial starting of this before anyone actually got fired. And during that meeting, some people had a reasonable explanation for not getting their AI assistant account set up during the week, like being on vacation, Armstrong said. And then at the end here, this is where he actually got fired people. I jumped on this call on Saturday, and there were a couple people that had not done it yet. Some of them had a good reason because they were just getting back from a trip or something, and some of them didn't. So essentially, he went person to person. If you had a bad reason, and I'm wondering what those bad reasons were, he just flat out fired you. On the, that would be the
I
reason.
imagine if you just said I don't like AI and
I
he's
can
going
imagine
AI,
that.
it'd be
What do
like,
you
okay,
think
out.
about what do you think about that, Matt? What do you think about like the harshness of that reality?
I have two minds on it. As someone who like let's think of this, and I'm not calling this guy necessarily heartless, but like let's think of it in the heartless from the perspective of like the heartless, entrepreneur, CEO, whatever. If I'm steering the ship and I decide that the ship needs to have AI as a crucial part of it, and the crew of said ship or parts of the crew of said ship are refusing or don't want to or what have you to use AI, then those crew members are no longer compatible with my ship. And I don't have a responsibility to keep them employed. So goodbye. Now, again, of two minds, my personal brain says maybe you should coax the people. Like, it is pretty heartless. At least it seems like it. Like, it's not like we were there, but it seems pretty heartless to me to just suddenly come in and be like, okay, this is our new mandate. Do this. You didn't do it. You're out. Albeit, having said that out loud, if you were a person that was fired and you were given this warning of, hey, you got to do this onboarding and you didn't, how many of your friends, like if like you're a programmer, let's say, and you're talking to your friends about how you were just fired from Coinbase, right? And they were like, were you just fired at random? Like, what happened? And you explained, the CEO told me to do this week. I refused to do it, and then I got fired. I mean, they're just going to say, well, you should have did it, right? Like, I feel like that's what's going to happen, whether they're engineers or not. Now, I get it. There's like this whole anti-AI thing, and there's all this stuff. And like, if I was in this thing, I probably would have I probably would have either given them more time or maybe made it mandatory only after the training had gone through. Like, I'm a bit more easygoing that way. I definitely don't want to like start a conflict with everybody and be like so cutthroat. But again, back to the entrepreneurial mind, out of the personal mind. That entrepreneurial mind is these people are in the
Yeah,
way, get them out of
and
the way.
I'll give my take on it because I think it's similar, but slightly different. I think it depends on when this was, and I haven't. The reason I was kind of scrolling during this, if you're watching the screen, is that I'm trying to figure out if this was like as soon as these AI tools came out, like in 2023, or was this year, like 2025. And I think there's a pretty big difference there because earlier on, skepticism was, I think, okay for the most part. I think it's important to be skeptical of the stuff that comes in, and having a week of people not using it in 2023 to me is not a big deal, and I would definitely not have fired people for that or not have any repercussions really. I think it changes a little bit if it's literally like, a month or two ago. And the reason for that is that that means that they have not tried AI even on their own or like in their own workflows before that at all, and they're refusing to use AI at all moving forward. They're
Right.
essentially kind of handicapping themselves because they're not asking you to use AI. Like, he explicitly states, you don't have to use AI every day or for every little thing. Just use AI in your workflow in some capacity. AI can help you to some capacity in your workflow, full stop. It will help you do certain things. Repetitive tasks is a
Right.
great one. If you need to rewrite a bunch of code over and over and again, it's really good at that. Like refactoring, there's certain things that AI just can do really well at this point. It's a tool. There's certain things that it's a little bit borderline on, like if you want to have it write an entire feature for you, I can see there being skepticism around that, but that's not what this person's asking. That's not what the CEO was asking. He was asking just for some adoption, and the skeptical people that refuse to adopt it completely, I can see that being a hindrance to a company, right? Like, that means that moving forward, if something else comes out that's even more
Right.
powerful, they would be skeptical on using that, and like that just slows you down, right? Like, just having people that refuse to try the next thing can slow you down. Now, again, I don't really agree with this like week-long test that he put on people without telling them it was a test, and then firing them. Like, that's a little bit harsh for me, but I can understand to a certain degree where he's coming from. Again, if it was this year, because AI is a tool and it's can do things crazy good. And if you don't try to iterate and learn how to use it, you're 100% going to fall behind. Um, I I think the flip coin to this, it sounds like this wasn't actually a big thing where like he fired a lot of people. I think that's what the title of this article implies, that a bunch of people got fired, but it sounds like this was like a case by case, not too many people actually getting
Right.
impacted, more of like sending a message type thing, which again, arguably still scummy to send a message by firing people. But if like, if you're firing people and they're critical to your ecosystem, like that is also a little bit not the greatest thing. Like, I think a lot of people that would refuse to use AI are probably people that are pretty intensely good engineers that have an in-depth knowledge of the code base that they're writing, and they're refusing to use AI probably because they think that they just know it all, or like they don't need it. So you are risking the fact that you're losing a significant portion of your productivity, in that you're essentially firing some of the best people potentially, from at least today's perspective. So the two sides of the coin there are like, it's a little bit harsh to fire people. I understand it. I understand it to a certain degree that, like, if people refuse to adopt technology, that is an indicator of where their mind's at, and they might not be able to fit in the future of where we're going with development. But just firing them
Mm-hmm.
and having no backup plan, like after a Friday meeting, that's a little bit crazy to me. I think that's where kind of I land on this whole thing.
Well, the thing with this is like, I've kind of joked with friends because I've never been in this situation, but like, we've all been there with like creative things that we like, shows, TV shows, things like that, where like a creatively bankrupt and obviously creatively bankrupt decision was made and like had kind of like infiltrated the company, and then that either kills the show that we like, or maybe it was bad for a season, then it came back and they had to like do a reset and things like that. And I've like talked to friends about it, and just, you're just kind of talking among friends. It's not like you're making an official statement, but I'm like, man, if someone were to bring that up to me in a boardroom, I know that they're creatively bankrupt and they're fired. And a lot of people would say like, and I don't know if I would actually do that, right? I've never been in those shoes, but like I have friends like that would say like, that's surprisingly like kind of harsh. And I'm like, yeah, but if they were willing to bring up and thought it was a good idea to bring up something that was so outlandish, that was like so creatively bankrupt or so against what we're going for, and like thought it was a good idea and like had enough like, influence in the company or what have you, whatever you want to say, to like actually push the idea through, because of that, I'm like, that's the beginning of corporate rot and they're out. And like, again, like, have I done that? No. Would I do that? I mean, I don't think so. I'd probably be a little more gingerly, but just talking off the cuff, it's been like that. Like I've said stuff like that in those conversations. And like, that means like I'm not a unique, as a supremely unique human. Like that means that there are humans out there that will do that, right? Like there are humans out there that will just be more cutthroat. I would also like to bring something else out. Is like, you sent me over the weekend just a screenshot of like this article, but by another, like not this exact article, but the coverage on here, and like clearly. At least the way that I'm seeing this is like they're definitely trying to talk about or bring attention to, and again, this is my opinion, they're definitely trying to bring attention to the harshness of this. So like, I think this is from entrepreneur.com. The screenshot just has a bit of it cut off there, so I'm not 100% if that's the website, but it's the headline reads, Coinbase's CEO fired software engineers who didn't adopt AI tools. We're leaning as hard into AI, as hard as we can into AI. And then the byline reads, software engineers, and this is where it gets really harsh. Software engineers were asked to explain to the CEO directly why they weren't using AI coding tools on a Saturday, and if they didn't give a good reason, if they didn't
The
have a good
Saturday
reason,
is
they were
what
fired.
this article is missing, I guess. I mean, no, it says,
And
"And
so
if
it,
not, I'm hosting a meeting on Saturday." It actually says that right here. Jesus.
right, and so like, obviously there's two minds of it here, right? Like we've already talked about that. There's sort of like the, hey, you're being too harsh. Hey, hey, some people are going to be on board and say, hey, yeah, this is the way to do it. Um, I would, I would like to say that this assignment, I'm just going to call it, feels like a school assignment where like the teacher's like, I'm going to have a due date on Saturday unless you guys do this little thing. And 99% of the class does it, but then the 1% of the students, they don't pay attention or what have you, and then they have to go in and have that meeting or hand that thing in on Saturday, and they're complaining that they had to like do this thing on Saturday, and it's like, hey man, like you were told by the leader of this company to set up these AI tools. Like that's it, man. Like I don't know what else to say. Now you can also argue like, hey, like maybe these people are protesting. You could argue that there's like a lot of anti AI people out there. Maybe you're protesting AI, this and that. I don't know how, like, what the stance is on that, or like how you would handle like a protest within your own company. I'm not equipped. I've never done that. I've never been trained to deal with something like that. But I wonder if that's ever come up at all in this. Like, it isn't in any of these articles, but there are like AI protests, right? Like people who are like, in protest, I'm not using AI in my personal life. Obviously, some people are refusing to use it in their
I
professional lives as
okay, so
well.
what I'll say here is that his wording initially didn't sound like they were gonna get fired. It sounded like there might be repercussions, not even though, like, all he said was, "Hey, I'm hosting a meeting on Saturday with everybody who hasn't done it, and I'd like to meet with you to understand why." It sounded like it was like
Right.
a information gathering meeting.
Right, but does that give you an excuse as an employee to not follow orders? Effectively, what you're saying there is, oh, the CEO, it's
I don't
okay. It's just a little
I
meeting.
agree.
I just won't
I
do what I
guess
was ordered
so,
to
like,
do.
I think that the idea that people aren't using AI for a principled stance in a company, I think that there could be repercussions for that, right? Like, I think that's you're allowed to, like, a company's allowed to have, standards that they set, and if you don't meet those standards, you could get fired or you could get some other repercussion, like, put on a PIP or something. I don't like how this was handled in particular directly, like, he even mentioned it, like, it was a
Sure.
heavy-handed approach. I'm not a huge heavy-handed management style kind of person. Like, I think radical candor is important. Like, that is a term that management uses. I think it should have been very clear that, hey, if you don't use AI, if you like, hey, if you don't use AI, there will be repercussions. He should have been clear about it, right? Like, yes, he did say an
Right.
order, but it didn't sound like it was going to be, you use this or you're fired kind of thing. It sounded like you use this or I'm going to really understand why you're not using this. And then we're going to have another conversation about it. Right, and then probably in that conversation, he would have had to tell them to use it or get out.
Well, I'll say this is like someone from IT that's come from the IT background. I'm sure you have experienced this because you're from IT, as well. Is if you implement something at a company and you don't make it mandatory, people just don't do it. Like something like if you're like we have a strict policy, but it's just verbally or written somewhere to change your password every 10 days, and the system doesn't force the people to do it. Obviously, some people have good excuses, like even hey, I forgot because it's just a password thing, like is a decent excuse. But the thing is if I don't implement an actual like digital or technically implemented policy that forces you to change your password every 10 days, you are not going to change your password every 10 days. And people are not going to take it seriously. They're going to like laugh it off and think it's no big deal and things like that. And I can see how leadership, for sure, in this case, I do agree that this is a bit harsh. I do agree with that, but I can see how frustrating it can get with leadership, where like you give an order, and you're like, "Yo, use this," and it's like people are like doing the whole nonchalant thing, like, it's no big deal. It's no, it's just this, it's just that, and maybe it's a situation in which he's just sick of it, and he's just sort of like, "Are you using this? No, told you to.
It
Bye." Harsh,
it
but
comes down to the
also
language of
like,
it and the interpretation, in my opinion. Like, I think, again, I agree with you that a leader can give an order, and there has to be repercussions for that order. My problem is with how he presented it. Like, it was too loosey goosey in the conversation. AI is important. We need to all learn how to learn it and on board. You don't have to use it every day yet until we do some training, but at least on board by the end of the week. Like, it sounds, yes, it's clearly there, like, at least on board by the end of the week. That's an order, but he doesn't also offer any repercussions other than the
right.
meeting on Saturday. So I think in that order, he should have said, like,
But here's
clearly,
the
like,
thing, though, like
if you don't use it, there will be repercussions.
take this out of this context and apply it to school, because we've kind of drawn that parallel, right, where like it's like, oh, the teacher's going to say, hey, you're going to have to hand something extra in on Saturday or whatever. Do you feel sorry for the students who get the memo that they need to do something, or else they'll have to do weekend work, and then they don't do weekend work and then get zero on the weekend work and lose those grades? Do you feel sorry for those people? Does the teacher really need to drive that home? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I
no, I get you.
again, I a little bit of devil's advocate right now. Like, I would not have handled this like AI situation the way that this CEO handled it. But I can see the point of saying like again, like if you were talking to your group of friends after you were fired from code from Coinbase, and they said, what did you do? And it's and effectively what you did is the CEO gave an order and told you that if you didn't do it, you would have to have a call on Saturday. So then you had a call on Saturday, which sounds atypical. Maybe it's not atypical there, but it sounds atypical from the general work schedule, right? And then you went to a Saturday meeting just to say that you didn't follow an order, and then you were fired. how sorry are your friends who do not work in your field or even do work in your field gonna feel? Like it'd be like saying, hey, I'm gonna become a plumber, and the government comes in and says, all right, all pipes got to be silver for some reason. I don't know, I'm making it up. All pipes got to be silver, and that starts on Friday. And you have a job Friday, and you're like, well, I'm gonna order plastic pipes. I don't care. And you go do this big old job, and then guess what? Government comes in, they take a look, they go, these aren't silver, rip it all out. Also, here's a big old fine. How sorry do you feel for that person, for that plumber? How
Yeah,
sorry
no,
do you feel for that plumber?
you bring up good points. Like I do agree that it is a pretty clear statement to that sense. Like it is an order from a CEO. It is a pretty important thing. And again, the whole thing with the AI being a really good tool, not using it, there's not many excuses to not use it right now. I do understand that aspect, and I kind like you've kind of convinced me on it for the most part. I keep going back to the fact that you're going to lose people that are very critical to the ecosystem
Oh,
that
I
you're
agree.
building, because the stubborn people are usually the people that do contribute a ton to the code base. That's the reality of it. Like these quote unquote 10x engineers are usually going to be the people that are refusing to use AI. And you could be losing a shit ton of
Sure.
talent, even if it's only a couple people fired. You could be losing a shit ton of talent in production and put yourself back months in your roadmap because of a heavy-handed approach. So like my point here isn't that I wouldn't feel sorry for them, like, or I would feel sorry for them. Like it's not about that. I just think that this was the wrong decision from a company perspective for Coinbase. Like I feel like this set them back a little bit, even though it did probably get the message across that you got to use AI. Like I think it had the
And I agree with you for
what the
sure.
CEO wanted was the message to come across. I think he got that 100%. But I do think that it had a net negative effect on
Right.
morale in the company and productivity in the company, because I don't think those people that were fired were easily replaceable.
And like, to be clear to the listener, like I'm not trying to be that like hard ass CEO. Like I, playing a bit of devil's advocate here, and like and I am talking from like the idea that like you may tell your friends you got fired, and then if you just say, well, I didn't follow a CEO order, it's like, well, okay, you know what I mean? Like I guess you got fired for a reason, right? Like, but I do agree. Like if I was running
Yeah.
Coinbase, I wouldn't have handled it like this. Like I do agree that like humans are humans. There's like, instead of things being black and white, they usually fall somewhere in between, right? Where there's like kind of like that gray area where some people take it seriously, other people don't. Maybe some other people had like some huge project and they worked on that instead. Like whatever, right? There's all these like gray areas you can get into. And so that's why a heavy-handed approach is a bit, not great. Now obviously the CEO, to his credit, did take that into consideration. Like if they just got back from a trip or something, if they're on vacation, it's like, okay, fair enough. Like you didn't do this because you weren't here. I mean, and it was approved time off or what have you. So okay, like of course. But I'm just saying, that like I don't know. Like this is a harsh approach
But
that
you would
I
have
wouldn't have
understood.
handled. Like I wouldn't have done.
Okay.
I understand where he's coming from, and what I'm trying to guess. My question is, and I actually don't have an answer. Is this
Fair
fair?
is a tough one. Well, well, fair, like
Is
fair
this
from
fair?
what
I think it
perspective?
might be fair.
Fair from like a legal perspective, or like just like a moral
No,
perspective?
from a like I wouldn't have been happy in this situation, but like is this I don't know, I've struggled with it. I don't know if it's fair from a perspective of like if like again, if you were talking to your friends and fellow engineers or even like fellow like I guess former coworkers at Coinbase where you were like I was fired. Obviously the words that are going to come out of people's mouths are like, "Oh, that's nonsense, that's BS." This and that, of course. And if I was fired this way, I would complain as well. But again, I chose not to do an order and I had an opportunity to give a good excuse and I didn't have one.
Yeah, like
So is this fair?
yeah.
There's a thing called harsh but fair. I don't know the answer whether this is harsh or fair. Like harsh. I actually no. This is harsh. I don't know if it's
Again,
fair.
it's kind of borderline. It's kind of borderline to me, because you're right. Like you've kind of convinced me that if someone were to come to me and say that they disobeyed a direct order from the CEO and got fired, I would be like, yeah, I think I
Kind of sounds like you, because it wasn't like you, like if you were on vacation, it wasn't like he was like, get back
yeah,
from vacation right now and do your onboard. Like it wasn't like that. It also wasn't like, hey, if you have a, if you actually have a legitimately good excuse, vacation or otherwise, if you have a legitimately good excuse, like I'm just going to fire you anyway. It wasn't like that. It was very much like,
yeah,
do this, or we're having a meeting. Like it's kind of like the school thing, or like, and not even the, like, take away my original school example. Think about like summer school.
mhm, yeah,
It's like, do your work now or do it during the summer. And here's the thing: there's gray areas. Like you can get screwed over where like you were too busy to do your onboarding, or you can get screwed over in school where you legitimately didn't understand something and the teacher was not helpful, and then you failed as a result of that, and not due to the fact that you weren't trying. That's not like that's not neither here nor
yeah.
there.
I mean, you're not wrong. I think there is an argument for this is harsh but fair. I think there's an argument on the other side that, again, he could have been more clear, about the consequences, and that would have been more fair,
Yes, yeah,
like, but it's tough, like, no one can really, like, go after him for anything on this, in my opinion. Like, this isn't anything that, like, constitutes any sort of, workplace lawsuit or anything like that. This is someone giving an order and you getting fired for not doing it. I just, again, net negative for both the people that didn't do it and the company in the grand scheme of things, in my opinion, because it's going to destroy the talent. I think an easier solution would have been to try to get them to use it and be more direct in the approach rather
yes.
than, again, yeah, or just
Force the
tell them like,
onboarding
"Hey,
when
if
they
you
log
if you
in or
don't wanna
something.
use AI, then you can look for other opportunities." Like, it's just like, just that would have been mostly fine for me. Like, I think I would have been completely fine with that. Like, yeah, yeah,
Like this is a more robotic way to manage, like a more like very like, not
yeah,
entirely robotic. Again, there were excuses that were allowed. This isn't
yeah.
an entirely robotic like you use AI, no, out. It wasn't like that. Um, but there's a more human touch you can take with like a management skill, with the management style actually is the better way to say it. Like you can have a more human
And
way
not
to
lose
manage
potentially good
people.
talent. That's all. Like, it's not even about just the people, it's about the company as
Correct.
well, like, losing productivity and talent. That's why I always wanna bring it back to that because when a manager listens to this or an owner of a company, their argument is always like, it's got to be the numbers, you got to be harsh, like it's got to be that. And like I get that argument as well. So it's always you always have to bring it back to like, hey, you're actually like shooting yourself in the foot a little bit here too. Like this isn't just like be human. I think it's
Yeah.
important to be human. Let me make that clear. But when you're talking to management, when you're talking to ownership, when you're talking to C-level people, you have to speak in their language, and their language is productivity, at like costs, stuff like that. And the way to prove it to them is be like, hey, this is what you did. This is how it impacted the bottom line of the company. This is how it impacted productivity. This is why it was the wrong decision. Unfortunately, it's just how it is.
Yes. Well, I mean, I'll give an example that happened to me. Like, I mean, I didn't get fired, but I was supposed to do timesheets for the very first time ever at a company, and I was told by all my coworkers and stuff that timesheets are a joke. They don't really do them. Like, just don't worry about it. And I was kind of given a couple like automated warnings from the system. And like again, I was a new employee, and people around me kept saying they're jokes, don't do them. So okay, or like just do them when you can, but just half-ass them. Like it was a very like nonchalant thing. And then eventually, the head honcho of that department was basically like, "You do this, or we're withholding your paycheck."
Mhm.
And so that's kind of more what you're saying, where it's like this CEO could
Yeah,
have said, "You either do this or you're getting fired on
that's
Saturday
what I would have
potentially,"
liked personally.
right? And like I would have thought it was unfair
Mhm.
that, see, that's that gray area, right? Where it's like I was being told by the people who have more seniority than me all around me that the timesheets were a
Yeah,
joke and not to worry about them, and they didn't mean anything. Right? I was being told that. So that's that gray area where it wasn't like I wasn't being completely negligent. I was being kind of told to be negligent by people that I trusted, really. And then when the consequence came down, it's like, all right. or like the consequence to it's like, all right, I better do that. However, that still looks weird on me having just been like, here's this thing that I want you to do, but just half-ass it. It's like, what?
Yep, exactly.
Like it kind of sucks.
But I think that's it. Like, I think the point of this, at least from this article, there may be more information from other articles. We don't know enough details to assume that like this is how the company culture was like before. We don't have any of the feedback from the actual people that got laid off, so we don't know what their roles were, stuff like that. This is just our take, overarchingly kind of generalizing a lot, so because we don't have the specifics. But exactly, yeah, yeah, I just wanna make that
This is a
clear that we're
conversation on this
not, like,
article,
saying
basically.
that exactly everything that he did was wrong or exactly everything he did was right. This is just, like, our kind of musings on what we would do in the situation or what we think is right and wrong as well. It's important, to talk about kind of this stuff, especially now with the AI kinda taking over. I think it's important for people to embrace it. I've said it many times on this podcast that you should be using AI. You don't have to use it for everything. You don't have to vibe code. Absolutely. You can use it for certain things, like just inject it into your workflow and iterate, just like any tool, please. And it will make you a better developer at the end of the day if you know how to use it correctly. Right. And if you refuse to use it for principles or whatever, it's going to make you worse than the people that are actually using it and are on the same level as you. So that's kind of where I want to end it with this. I'm really curious what everyone thinks about this kind of format. This is our first time going through an article. We didn't read the whole thing. I don't think it's required for this kind of thing, but let us know if you wanted us to be more in depth. Let us know if you needed to read a bunch of articles. Like, really interesting to see the feedback on something like this, that our first kind of web news with actual news. Yeah, I think that's it for me, Matt. Anything else you want to add? Awesome. Well, thank you for
Nope,
listening to
that's
the
it.
web
That's it
news.
for me as
We
well.
don't have an official conclusion for the web news yet, so we're just going to sign off. Goodbye.
Later.